At first, there was the fire. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 151 of the Shower Podcast, the podcast where I'm in Thailand and you do you. I'm your host, Chip, and yeah, you heard it right. As you might have imagined, this is a special twist of the Shower Podcast around the world. Today, we're starting a series where we're diving deep into the origins of self-improvement. This will be a mini-series that will be running now that I am away, and hopefully we will get the chance to learn where all these things that I've been preaching about in the last 150 episodes come from. Before apps, before books, before even written words, there was, us humans sitting around fires trying to figure out what it meant to be better, stronger, wiser. So today we're stepping into those ancient footprints to see where it all began. Now, think about this. Have you ever wondered who the first self-improvers were? Like, who was the original person who said, yeah, I could do this better next time, no? I'm pretty sure it wasn't someone with a journal or a vision board. It was probably someone sitting by a river reflecting on how not to get eaten by a tiger the next day. It was survival, sure, but it was also the first spark of learning. The realization that I can do better. And that's what we're exploring today. Let's travel back, way back, to ancient Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization. This region nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, as you might have learned in school, and it gave us the first cities, the first writing system, and most importantly for us, the first recorded stories. One of these stories is the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest pieces of literature we've discovered. It's this amazing tale of a king, Gilgamesh, who was, let's be honest, kind of a tyrant at first, but after the death of his best friend, Enkidu, he embarks on this quest to find immortality. It's a journey of grief, of growth, and of realizing that the legacy we leave, our deeds, our kindness, are what truly makes us immortal. And what I love about Gilgamesh is that even though it was written around 2100 before Christ, I think, it's so human. I mean, who hasn't been rocked by the loss of a loved one and started questioning what life is really all about? Gilgamesh starts as this powerful guy, but he ends up humbled, realizing that it's not about conquering the world, it's about living a meaningful life. And that right there, it's one of the first self-improvement arcs in human history. But Mesopotamia wasn't the only place where people were reflecting on life and how to be better. Let's hop over to ancient Egypt. Around 2400 BC, there was this guy named, you'll have to forgive me for the pronunciation, but Ptahhotep. He was a vizier, kind of like a prime minister, and he wrote something called the Maxims of Ptahhotep. It's one of the oldest known books of wisdom, and picture this. A father writing advice for his son, telling him how to live a good life. And you know what? A lot of his advice still makes sense today. And it was funny to me because it reminded me a bit of what I'm trying to do here with the Shower Podcast. For example, Ptahhotep said, if you are a man of authority, be patient when you are listening to the words of a petitioner. Basically, listen before you speak. He also emphasized humility, kindness, and fairness. Can you believe that 4,000 years later, we're still struggling with these simple truths? It's kind of humbling to realize that the basics of being a good person haven't really changed. Now, I know what you are thinking, but Chip, weren't these ancient people just trying to survive? Did they really have time to think about personal growth? Well, actually, more than what you think, and that's what makes it so fascinating. Sure, survival was priority number one, But even then, people find time to reflect, to share stories, to carve wisdom into stone. It wasn't just about getting through the day, it was about finding meaning, leaving a mark, and maybe, just maybe, living with a little more dignity and purpose. And let's not forget that these ancient cultures were also deeply spiritual. In Mesopotamia, they believed in gods who judged human actions. In Egypt, living according to Maat, the principle of truth, balance, and justice, was essential. They weren't just looking out for their own well-being, they were trying to align with cosmic principles. Something that, as of today, it's not so easy to understand because we, let's say, distance ourselves from those beliefs with the good and the bad. But let's say that, in a way, their self-improvement wasn't just about being a better hunter or leader. It was about being a better human in the eyes of something greater. And this is fascinating because on one end, something that I discussed also in one of the previous episodes, we are now always referring to ourselves, the self in self-improvement, as I mentioned in one of the most recent episodes. This is the person that we look up to. Whereas, in their end, there was something outside of them. They didn't have necessarily the maturity to realize that it meant something to be better for yourself, but at the same time, the drive was there. And this makes me think about how we today often look for meaning in our own lives. We read books, follow influencers, listen to podcasts like this one, and all searching for answers. But the ancients were already onto something. The idea that being better isn't just about being smarter or richer, it's about how you live, how you treat others, how you carry yourself through the ups and downs. See, those early stories didn't just give people something to listen to after a hard day. They shaped culture. They passed down knowledge, values, and warnings. And here's where it gets even more interesting. These stories became rituals. In many early societies, initiation rites marked the transition from childhood to adulthood. These weren't just symbolic, they were designed to instill virtues like courage, patience, and responsibility. Think of the coming-of-age ceremonies in indigenous tribes where young people would endure tests of endurance or wisdom to prove their readiness. In a sense, these were the original personal growth workshops. Except you didn't get a certificate at the end, you earned the respect of your community and you got to survive. And speaking of community, let's not overlook the oral traditions of Africa, where griots, meant as storytellers, historians, and musicians, passed down the epic tales of Sundiata, the story of the Mali's empire founder. These stories weren't just entertainment, they were lessons in leadership, resilience, and integrity. Sundiata was about a boy who overcame disability and exile to unify a kingdom. It's a timeless narrative of rising above adversity, something we can all relate to, whether we're facing job loss or just trying to stick to a new habit. Meanwhile, over in the Americas, cultures like the Maya and the Inca also wove lessons of personal and communal responsibility into their mythologies and practices. The Maya, for instance, had a complex understanding of time and cycles, emphasizing that each generation bore the responsibility to maintain harmony with nature and the cosmos. It's a reminder that self-improvement wasn't and isn't just about the self. It's about contributing to something bigger. Exactly the point that we were mentioning before about how there is this split between what they used to believe back then and what we have right now. And I know this might sound like a lot of philosophy for people who were also trying to avoid predators and famine, but think about it. When survival is tough, you have to learn and adapt. And over time, that learning turns into wisdom. Wisdom becomes culture, and culture becomes the foundation for everything we build on today. What's really striking is how global these early ideas of self-betterment were. Whether you were in ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, West Africa, or Mesoamerica, the core questions were the same. How do I live well? How do I stay strong in the face of hardship? How do I treat others? It's kind of humbling, isn't it? To realize that across time and space, humans have always been wrestling with the same questions we ask ourselves today. And you know what else is fascinating? Even if in the earliest records, we see the seeds of critical thinking. Sure, it wasn't framed the way we think of it now, but questioning, reflecting, and learning from mistakes were baked into these stories and teachings. Take the Egyptian concept of ma'at, living in truth and balance. Or consider how Mesopotamian law codes, like the famous Code of Hammurabi, didn't just list punishments, but also embedded ideas of justice and fairness, prompting people to think about the consequences of their actions. And let's not skip over the spiritual dimension. These early societies weren't just thinking in terms of individual survival, they were trying to align themselves with something larger. Whether it was the gods, natural forces, or cosmic cycles, there was this sense that personal growth wasn't just about personal gain, it was about harmony. That's a lesson we still struggle with today. In our hyper-individualistic world, it's easy to forget that personal development and community well-being aren't mutually exclusive. You see, what's really exciting about looking back at these ancient times is realizing that self-improvement didn't start with fixing yourself or hacking your habits. It started with understanding your place in the world, your responsibilities, and the impact of your actions. And if we really think about it, isn't that what we're still trying to figure out? Whether we're journaling, meditating, or just trying a bit more patient with our coworkers, we're still tapping into the same ancient desire to be a little better today than we were yesterday. So, as we wrap up this first episode, which I'm very curious to hear your feedback about, here's something to ponder. The next time you catch yourself scrolling through tips and productivity or listening to podcasts about confidence, and the Shower Podcast is one of them, remember that you're standing on the shoulders of countless generations who sat around fires, built temples, carved laws into the stone, and passed stories down through the ages, all in the pursuit of a better self and a better world. And that's where we'll leave it today, because there is much more to unravel. This was just the first episode, as I said. As a small spoiler, in the next episode, we'll step into the Axial Age, a time when philosophers and sages from all across the world, Greece, India, China, Persia, took those early sparks of wisdom and turned them into powerful, lasting philosophies. I will not name the names of these ones because, I don't want to keep it as I want to keep it as a surprise for you tomorrow. But if you know the stories and history, you know where we are heading. As always, thank you very much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave a like and a subscribe. As I say many times, just one click, but they really make the difference. And even more, given that this is a first and a new idea, let me know down in the comments if you enjoy this more story-driven approach. As always, stay consistent, stay resilient, and what else? See you tomorrow.